you have to kind of go back and ask the question, why, why are we doing it? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? What's the outcome that we're trying to drive? Like if you get down to basics, almost all problems are very easy and very solvable, right? It becomes much more easy to tackle them.
Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce. I want to make sure that I get this correct, because I don't want to mispronounce your name. But if you're introducing yourself to somebody, how do you introduce yourself?
It's so funny. I don't even know anymore. So it's just the same as Logiwa or Logiwa. Right? Because since I moved to the States, people would call me Amit. Amit, right? The little emphasis on A, it's a better A, and less emphasis on the T. So that somehow became very normal for me. And then when people ask me, then there was a time in my life where I had to stop and think, is it Amit? So it's really the right way to do is Amit. So it's a very small emphasis on the A itself, and it's almost like a half of a T, like Amit. Amit. Not D, T. Amit. Yeah, there you go.
Gotcha.
But I'm used to it. I'll answer to most things.
So you get a lot of Amit.
And then way I think a lot of what happens is it kind of the more common name that people associate with when I say Amit is Ahmed. Like, so that's the typical, if I say it once, most people will come back and it's like Ahmed. It's how,
like there's
what
an
they're thinking
extended
of. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. That's what they're thinking of typically. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, as I was doing some research on you, is this a common name?
It's a very common name.
Okay.
Very common. It's like John Smith. It's like, so
you're the John Smith.
I'm the John Smith of
India.
That's right. Yeah. Amit Kumar. Kumar is one of the most common last names. And Amit is probably one of the most common first names. So it is really, really common. I remember one of my stints during my career was at IBM. So IBM is a massive company.
Massive.
500,000 people.
Right.
So, you cannot, just by my name, you cannot figure out which Amit Kumar you're looking for within IBM.
Within IBM.
So it's that common. Imagine that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a very common.
Well, I'm not going to lie. When I was doing my research,
I can't imagine you found me without being in Logiwa or something else.
I had to include Logiwa, but I didn't the first time.
Yeah, there's no way of finding me.
And I was optimistic because you are also one of the most popular recording artists.
That's right.
In India.
Yeah.
And so I played a few clips and I thought, wait a second.
Yeah.
Is this also? No, it's not.
That's one skill I don't have.
Amit Kumar.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Logiwa or Logiwa.
There you go.
However you'd like to say it. Well, thank you for coming in. We sure appreciate it. I know you had to change your travel schedule around for us to accommodate, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Yeah,
we are really, at eHub, we're optimistic and excited about our partnership. We've worked with Logiwa for a long time, and we just think there's sky's the limit. And so I'm really interested to hear your perspective. You're a fairly new employee.
I am.
At Logiwa, and hired as, I want to say the director of product, but that might not be correct. Vice president of product. What is your title?
I lead product. Let's just call it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Titles are not that important.
Before we get into, before we get into your background, which I think is fascinating, where you grew up and how you ended up here in the States, can you give us kind of just the 30,000 foot of your role and your goals as the lead of product with Logiwa?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I've been at Logiwa about 8-9 months now. My mandate is essentially to own product. So I own all of product at Logiwa. We have multiple platforms, different things we can talk about. The focus is to kind of lead Logiwa into sort of the next iteration of fulfillment management, right? In the world where things are changing with AI, with digital technologies, with how we perceive fulfillment, all of that stuff, right? So Logiwa has a very strong foundation from a technology perspective. My job is to kind of build upon that foundation and take it to the next level.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you think growing up that this would
I'll be at Logiwa.
This would be your role in life, leading product. Let's go back to your background. You grew up in India, traveling around India with your family. Your dad was a civil engineer. And so the family moved around quite a bit. I bet that those experiences are very interesting for you.
I hated it growing up.
You
right?
did?
Yeah. As you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
You're a young kid every 2 years, you have to kind of leave
that
your
would
friends.
Be rough.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that time, in that moment, living that life was not fun. But when I look back at it, it's probably, one of the most foundational experiences of my life, right? The ability to see different places, the ability to experience different, even in India has a very diverse culture, very big country. One place, a place in the north is very different from a place in the south, completely different languages, completely different food, completely different ways of living life. So in that moment, while I didn't appreciate it now, when I look back at it, those experiences kind of shaped who I am. Some of the most foundational experiences of my life. Yeah. I'm glad to have done that now.
Not necessarily enjoyable while you were in the middle of it.
That's right. Yeah. As a kid, you focus more on, your friends and, you have to leave them and move on and things like that. Those things kind of are much more on your mind. Having to go to a new place and start, from scratch is not something that you look forward to. So not in the moment, no, it wasn't fun. I can't imagine. I think about that, with my kids and like, okay, maybe we should shift somewhere or move to a different country or move to a different place within the United States. And then the reaction that I get from them is so visceral. Then I'm like, I didn't like it either at that time. So I understand that.
I know, but the way you describe it now, it seems like it was so meaningful. Like, would you encourage, maybe somebody is saying, I could stay here and I could stay in my job or I have this opportunity to move across the country and experience something new. Is that something you would encourage?
Absolutely. Right. I think, as I look back at it, it shaped, like I said earlier, it shaped who I am in many ways. With my kids, I always say the same thing, try to have as many different experiences you can have. And the only way to have different experiences is to allow room to experience them, to move out of your comfort zone, right? It doesn't feel good in the moment, but, you will enjoy it. You'll look back at it with fond memories and you'll look back at it and it'll shape who you are and what you want to do in life for sure. And in many ways, I wish I had done more. So I did a lot of traveling in India growing up, not by my own choice, certainly, but that was a formative experience. But then I talked to some of my friends and colleagues and stuff who have had similar experiences, but then in different countries. One of my friends recently moved to Singapore and now they're moving back to a different country, and have young kids. And I'm always amazed by how someone can do that. But at the same time, I am always a little bit jealous of, I wish I had done that more in my life and in my career also. So, I think some of the best experiences that you can have by putting yourself in a brand new position, brand new situation. Yeah. And you can learn from that.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And, there is something that you get comfortable. It's hard to move.
Yeah.
And change can be challenging.
Change can be challenging. There's always more reasons not to do it than to do it.
I know.
Sure.
But, I think you probably should just take the step.
Yeah.
Take the leap every once in a while. Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Did you think you followed in your father's footsteps as an engineer, or as you were growing up, did your family or did your parents have some thoughts about how you should proceed in your education?
Yes and no. So no, in the sense that nobody pushed me in a specific direction. We were a very, what I would call a true middle class family in India. Like not upper middle class, not a lower middle class, like true middle class family in India. We had, we had enough. But at the same time, we knew that, the future depended on us having an education, having, there wasn't like a business to fall back on. There wasn't family money to kind of fall back on. It was always about, guys, you have to find your own way, and education is really important. India also being a country of, not many means. So you have to you always have to be focused and the pressure was there to continue studying and make sure that you make a living for yourself, make a life for yourself. So in that sense, they always pushed us, but nobody pushed us. Nobody pushed me to be an engineer or a specific profession. But in India, especially at the time I was growing up, when you talk to anybody about, like, if you want to build a life, there's very few professions that were available. There were not many choices. So, you usually, if you're good at studies, you either went into engineering or you went into medicine. Those were the two sort of broad choices. You don't really think about anything else. There isn't anything outside of those two standard choices. So in that sense, I kind of followed the path or followed the herd, in many ways. Medicine, was not for me. It was a bit more intense than what I liked. Engineering, was a little bit easier for me. It came easier for me. Math was something that I understood and enjoyed. My brain works like an engineer, I feel like. So it was just sort of the natural path.
Sure.
In many ways.
Yeah. Interesting. Did you have other hobbies or anything growing up?
I was really into sports. So that's,
I may have this wrong. Is cricket the national sport?
Cricket is might as well be the national sport. It's definitely the most popular sport. It's all a gift from the Britishers to us, and certainly a very popular sport. So cricket certainly, every Indian kid worth their salt has played cricket or would say cricket is a sport they love or have loved. So I still do. And there were other sports. I used to play anything and everything. We didn't have, I'm sure with you as well growing up, right? I mean, it wasn't as if we had, screens or, television wasn't even like when I was growing up, early in my, we didn't even have a television in the house. And eventually we got a television, but then there were not that much programming. It wasn't 24/7 certainly like it is today. There were a few programs sometimes late in the evening or over the weekends and stuff. For the most part, you're kind of spending your own time being busy. So come back from school, have a snack, you're out of the house. And there's a playground, and then it's up to you to figure out with your friends what you're going to do. So we used to play cricket, we used to play soccer, football in India. We used to play field hockey, of all things. All these different kinds, we used to go biking, just exploring, things of that nature.
All this.
But yeah. So from an early age, I was into, multiple sports. Soccer was a sport I used to play. Cricket was another sport. Table tennis, ping pong. I was very good at ping pong, early on. So I would say I had good hand-eye coordination. I was fairly good with a racket and a ball in many different ways. So multiple different sports. That's one of the things I look back and said, hey, I wish I had stayed with it and, put some more effort into it, and not gone into, engineering and stuff. It would have been a different life potentially, but, who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Could have been. Yeah. How is the Indian national soccer team? Do you follow the team at all?
They're not very good. In India, that's one of the things, right? We have one of the largest populations in the world. You would expect, we would have more talent, but I think the resources, the lack of focus, but also, just the reality of life in India, right? India is still I would say a evolving country, right? In some ways, third world country, right? It's not a advanced nation in some ways. So, at the end of the day, it becomes very difficult for people to dedicate time and energy when you have to, maybe I'm being a bit melodramatic when I say this, but it's like, it's a choice between, all right, I have to go make sure that I can put food on the table. And for that, I require, education and something that'll sustain me versus sports, right? And especially when you have so many people, a limited number of people who can invest time, energy, resources, money, can then avail of those things and kind of drive that. So overall, the Indian soccer team is not very good, making efforts to continue to be better, but they are not very good. I don't know what our ranking is, when you look at FIFA rankings and stuff, but yeah.
I'm always disappointed by the U.S. soccer team. I always think U.S. soccer should be better, but they never seem to put it together. So maybe we feel the same about our soccer team.
I think U.S. soccer is getting better. I mean,
getting better.
It takes time, right? It takes time. When you have kids in other countries, almost born with a soccer ball, that's sort of where the difference comes in, right?
Question.
Like the skill, the talent, like you're literally living day in and day out, 24/7 with a soccer ball. Then it's hard to compete with that.
Yeah, it sure is.
And then there's structure and infrastructure and a process in place. So, but U.S. soccer has taken, huge strides. I mean, even in the time that I've been here, right? It's only going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the women's team has seemed to have figured it out. It's just men's team isn't quite there yet.
It'll get there.
I know. I think you and I are probably the same. I wonder if I would have been if I dedicated more time to athletics, but it's just that, now you see all of the superstars and you think, oh, maybe I should have been.
Maybe I should have been. That's right.
Maybe I could have been that.
Yeah.
But
we can all dream, right?
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
As you start getting gray hair or you're losing hair, then you sit back and say, yeah, what could have been? What should have been?
Absolutely, yes, that's absolutely true.
I'm sure, as good as I feel I was growing up, I think I chose the path that suits me the best.
Absolutely. Very good. Okay. So you were educated in India. You went to undergraduate
That's right.
in India.
Yeah.
And what was your, was it engineering? You studied engineering?
Chemical engineering, yeah.
Chemical engineering. What were you hoping to do with chemical engineering?
I don't know. Honestly, at that time, it wasn't a well thought out, evolved sort of plan, right? I want to do engineering. And the way it works in India is, you go through these competitive exams to go through. So I went to, one of the best engineering colleges in India. And then you go through a competitive exam. And then based on rankings, you kind of have a historical profile of what fits for that type of ranking, etc. Not knowing which specific type of engineering you want to do. Civil was always something because my dad did that. Mechanical. I wasn't very interested in computer sciences. That was probably the hottest thing at that time. Everybody wanted to do that. I wasn't very interested in that. I wanted to do something more physical, I guess, in some ways. Chemical was interesting, so I decided to kind of explore that and pursue that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after you graduated, did you go to work or did you start applying to?
I did not go to work. I just immediately, even before I graduated, I started looking for schools to come to in the US to do my master's. At that time, believe it or not, I wanted to do my PhD and I was kind of interested in polymer sciences, polymer engineering. And that's sort of where my focus was. Virginia Tech was a pretty good school for its material sciences program.
Oh, God.
And that was the reason I chose Virginia Tech and kind of, and again, even when I joined them, my goal was to go on to do a PhD and sort of go in a different direction. Yeah.
And while you were there, we were talking about this before the podcast started. There was if you follow U.S. American football, there was an athlete who changed the quarterback position.
That's right. Yeah. Michael Vick. Yeah. He, it's fortunate for me, I certainly never grew up on American football. I didn't care much for it before coming to Virginia Tech, but the excitement, the hoopla, the energy surrounding it was just amazing, right? And then to be able to watch him live in action and see everybody kind of, going just nuts about, what he could do and, what he was doing on the field and how he kind of put, in many ways, I wouldn't say he put Virginia Tech on the map, but he kind of made it a prominent piece on the map at that time, right? Certainly, Beamer and the program that he built had a lot to do with it as well. But so it was a fascinating time to be someone coming in from India who knows nothing about football in a completely different place and then to see this type of energy, excitement, hype.
A guy who could just dominate the game. Yeah, he had a very nice professional career, but his collegiate career was
something else.
Yes.
Was something else. Right?
Outstanding.
Again, I'm not a a football aficionado, so I don't know all the history of it, but I feel like he was one of the first ones to do what he did with his motion and kind of movement, athleticism, not just the typical sort of stay in the pocket, kind of throw the ball quarterback, right?
Well, I think a lot of people would say that he's the genesis of everything that's happened with that quarterback position today and how it's exploded. So now you have a little bit of both, but most guys at the quarterback position are fairly athletic as well. Yeah. So expect to do a little more. More so. More so. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in the Dan Marino area where he couldn't run outside of the pocket. He could drop back. And that was it.
Even in this era, you had like a Manning, right? Or Brady, right? I mean, these guys are not runners.
Nope.
Yeah. And then you have others who are so athletic. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you're at Virginia Tech. And at this point, are you starting to determine what you would like to do in a career, or are you still undecided?
I'm still undecided. My original plan was to do a PhD. So that's why I came to Virginia Tech. My goal was, I'll, do some fascinating research in polymer sciences. We'll build something new. I was part of a research project. I was doing something for the military, which is fascinating. But somewhere along the way, I feel like I got disillusioned with the research process. It felt like a lot of, the idea of research for me was in the purity of it. You don't know, what the research might lead you to. You have a goal, you have a hypothesis, you're trying to validate or invalidate it, but you don't know for sure if you're going to get there or not. That to me was the fascinating part of the discovery and exploration and all that stuff. What I realized was a lot of this it doesn't work quite that way. So there's more, it doesn't work quite that way. So it was a little bit, of a disillusionment for me. And then, that's sort of where, I stepped back and kind of thought about, okay, this doesn't seem like what I expected. Is this what I want to do? And the answer was no, I need to go in a different direction. Yeah.
So, you got your master's. You decided not to get a PhD. And at that point, then you jumped into a career or into the working world, I guess.
Yeah, essentially. Just jumped into the working world. Okay. I took a role as a supply chain consultant, of all things. Supply chain was, pretty hot at that time. And it was always fascinating for me because it was something I could relate to, something it's very tangible, understandable. It was about moving goods, right? Or having enough, how do you meet demand from customers when you're in stores and things like that? Something, that you could kind of relate to without, in a normal way, let's put it that way. Something that doesn't require a lot of brain cells for you to kind of understand what the problem is. Problem, but then as you dig into it, it's a very complex problem. So that seemed fascinating to me, and that's sort of the world I joined, and then started my career as a consultant.
Got it. And have you stayed in supply chain in transportation your whole career?
No. So I would say, in my career, about half of my career is in and around supply chain in different capacities. It's kind of broken into two halves. So the first part of my career was, as I started off as a supply chain consultant, so I spent a lot of time there. Then now in this part of my career, I'm back into supply chain over the last, several years, 5-6 years now. And in between, I kind of explored many different industries. So I've worked in MarTech, FinTech, all the techs you can imagine. I've probably done that. So I've always had a little bit of a, I get the bug to explore something new, something different. The problem gets boring for me. So I always look for something new after a few years. So that's sort of what's been driving me, in many ways. That's who I am. That's on a personal level and on a professional level. That's what defines my career.
Gotcha. In that time between your first stint with supply chain and your stint now with supply chain, was there something in there that you really enjoyed? And is there something in that time period that you think, I would never do that again.
Yeah, there's always things. So as you look back at it and you're like, I wish things were different. Of course, in between those two sort of bookends, if you can call it that, I had the opportunity to build my own company, with a few partners, and we did that for 4 or 5 years, and that was an amazing experience. So loved every moment of it. At the same time, hated every moment of it, right? Hate is a wrong word, right? I mean, as a founder, you always have to worry about, the paycheck for your employees and make sure that, it's one thing to worry about your own paycheck, but then to worry about, other people who are depending on you and how the company is growing, etc. That becomes a little challenging, right? So that was something that always weighed on me. So when we sold our company, that was a great moment of, satisfaction, but also a great moment of, you could step back and sort of take a, sigh of relief, in many ways, right? So it was one of the most fascinating experiences of my life, certainly having gone through that. And in many ways, it was also a very tense moment of our life, going through that and kind of thinking about it. But I don't think I'm a natural, founder like many others are. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What kind of company was that?
It's a software company, SaaS company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you and a few partners started that and built it. Okay. So what are some of the most valuable lessons you learned? I think it's interesting that you said, looking back, you're like, well, I'm not really, that role doesn't fit me, but you were in that role for a few years. Yeah. What were some of the most valuable experiences, lessons that you learned?
Yeah. Always be open-minded, right? And we pivoted multiple times in 5-ish years of doing that. And then we successfully sold the company. So the end was positive and great. But, having an open mind, be open to ideas, right? Like, you never, when you start off, especially as a founder, when you start off building something, you never have the right answer. I don't believe anybody who has gone on with the original idea has, I'm sure there are people who have, but it's few and far between. So you have to be open to kind of listening to the signals or listening to the feedback. You still have to, parse through it and make your own decisions based off of that. That's just part of life. Nobody's going to come give you the answer, the magical answer. You still have to figure out what that right answer is for you and for your situation and for your company and for your employees. But be open. If we hadn't pivoted, we would not have been successful. So, and credit to, my partners and, who were willing to listen, all of us who are willing to work at it. Work through it and realize in places where things were not working and when we had to pivot and go to something else. That's probably the biggest lesson. It's probably the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah. How many employees did you have?
When we sold our company, I would say in the 20s, 30s, something like that. So not a super large company, small company.
Was that challenging? Having managing employees, managing people, did you find that challenging or fulfilling or?
Yeah, no, not the managing people part. That wasn't challenging. That was actually very fulfilling. That's one of the things I love doing is kind of, working with people early in their careers and who are trying to grow and kind of coaching them and building teams. That's a big part of what I love doing, especially, in more of my latter career roles where I'm kind of leading organizations, leading teams, etc. That wasn't the challenging part of that. Was actually exciting and fulfilling. Managing was not. I think the challenging part is all, as a founder for me, was more of making sure that, these are people who are reliant on us, right? Sure. Their families are reliant on us, right? And then are we making the right decisions, right? It's certainly, you have to run a business. At the end of the day, it's a company, it's a business. You're all doing it for making money or growing the business, etc. So you have to make some tough decisions along the way. But the balancing that with making fair decisions, making sure that you're not putting, you're not ignoring that there are human beings involved and lives involved and families involved. And that part is probably the toughest part.
Yeah. What led you down to the path of getting acquired?
we were in the market. Some of it was timing. Some of it was, we have been doing it for a while, and, others were of similar mindset of some of the challenges of being founder and kind of growing the company. But we had some traction, and we were in the market, looking to raise funds and drive sort of the next phase of growth. And one of our strategic partners was interested in, we're talking to them about raising funds, and then as it happened, they were very interested in, acquiring us. And then those conversations one thing led to another, and that's sort of how it came about. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. Since that experience, have you been in that type of role again as like a founder or a president, CEO?
No.
Okay. You just decided that you'd move along. Is that difficult to move from that role where you're kind of in charge of everything to the role where you're now an employee, and maybe, in a C-suite or management level, but different role?
Yes and no, right? I mean, at the levels that I have been at, last several roles, it's always a balancing act, right? All my peers, we all come with a lot of experience and what we believe, knowledge, and what we believe is the right thing to do, etc. Right? And in any sort of executive level group, we are all right all the time, right? So that's just part of it. So yes and no, right? I mean, there's always a balancing act. For me, like I said, being a founder, being a CEO is a phenomenal, job, role, responsibility, etc. I find much more satisfaction in in the roles that I have been. I'm a product guy. I like building stuff. I like building products. I like building teams. Certainly, I like leading businesses at the same time, but I enjoy my roles. I think these are the roles that give me the most satisfaction. So that's sort of where I focus on.
Yeah. Has there been a favorite role leading up to the role you have today with Logiwa?
That's an interesting question. Every role has its positives and negatives. Every role, if I look back at it, I miss something about every role I've had. And then there are some things that I wish I'd never done that, or, but there is nothing that's like, okay, this is a favorite role or this is a role I hate, except for it's almost always the role that you're in is always, the most painful because you have to solve problems right now, right? The others, you can look back wistfully and say, it was great or it wasn't, but yeah, no, I don't think there is every role has had something for me that I can look back and positive.
Yeah.
In a positive manner. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what was compelling or what is compelling about this opportunity with Logiwa?
Yeah. So there's several things. On a personal front for me, I am really fascinated by physical problems that require technology to solve for them, right? So like I was saying earlier, supply chain or the physical movement of goods, or, in our case specifically, we are on the warehouse floor, right? And the act of kind of moving things from a shelf to a cart, to a bin, to packing is sort of one critical piece of the puzzle in, as a consumer, I sit there, we order tons of things from online stores, from Amazon, from others, etc., right? And the complexity that sits behind someone clicking on the order and then 2 days later, 1 day later, 3 days later, receiving that box and having the satisfaction of receiving the right product or the dissatisfaction sometimes of receiving the wrong thing or not getting it on time or getting it lost in transit. All the complexity that sits behind it and the physical activities that, I can physically see and relate to. And those are the problems that I'm solving for. That's what is really fascinating to me about this space, about this problem. So that's on the personal side. Logiwa, warehouse management is not a new problem. It's not a problem that, it's, new age problem either, right? The warehouse management has been around forever. There have been a lot of different players. But, if you look at where we are, how the market is changing and how the technology is changing in this market. So those are two very fascinating sort of aspects of how we are trying to tackle things in this space, right? So, supply chain with COVID and with, all of the other things that happened earlier, it was a very fascinating time then. Now with tariffs and all of the geopolitical tension and, and all of the things that are happening, it's not an easy world. It's not an easy, industry, market, whatever term you want to use for it. It's a complex, very difficult, low margin business in some cases, right? So it's not an easy problem to solve, easy nut to crack. In this world, efficiency becomes really important. Technology becomes really important, right? So that's one aspect of it. And then you have, all of this, earlier it used to be digitization. Now it's AI, right? So how is that going to change the dynamic? Right? Not only in this market, but also for everything around us, how we live life today, but certainly in the market we are playing in. Those are two big factors. So if you think of, for me, the fascinating aspect of what I like, why I like building products, why I like solving problems is, you have complex problems with very difficult dynamics. And that's what you're trying to solve. And in that world, if you do it well, there is no parallel to that, right? That you can win really big if you do it well. So this is a confluence of all of these things for me coming together in this role at Logiwa. And that's sort of what's exciting to me about, what I'm doing, what we are doing here at Logiwa.
Now, you mentioned, logistics is just a space that continues to evolve. And, it feels almost like the problems are kind of the same. The problems are always the same. Like, how do you do this more efficiently? How do you get it there faster and without damage? And so people are happy and all those things. But you just keep trying to figure out how to become
better
and better and better. And you probably, I don't know, maybe we'll never be perfected in that. So as you start to tackle these problems and you put your teams together, what are some of the things, what are some of the principles, or what are some of the new technologies that you lean on to improve all of those processes?
It's a good question. Maybe I'll answer the principles part first, right? For me, I'm a big believer in sort of first principles, foundational way of solving problems. Everything you have to kind of go back and ask the question, why? Why are we doing it? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? What's the outcome that we're trying to drive? Like if you get down to basics, almost all problems are very easy and very solvable, right? It becomes much more easy to tackle them. So that's one thing I lean on. Doesn't matter what problem, doesn't matter, what stage the problem is in, 10 years ago, I would do that. 20 years from now, if I'm still working, I'll probably do the same thing.
Sure.
So that's a big part of it. Technology wise, again, the different aspects to it. So certainly one of the things, we're all living in very fascinating times, right? I mean, the world is foundationally changing around us. With AI, it's, most of us, I don't think know even how it will change and how it will evolve in the next, forget the next 5 years, maybe the next 5 months, right? So there's a lot of change at a warp speed that's happening that it's our human minds are not able to grasp that. There are some smart people who I hope understand it and, will help us understand as well. And the rest of us, we are trying to kind of barely keep up with the change or the speed of change that is happening, right? So one of the things that I tell my team, especially in the product world, is it's a fantastic time to be in the product space, and it's probably true for other spaces as well, because AI to me is a great leveler right now, right? So everything I have 20 years of experience, 25 years of experience in product management, etc. But I am in the same boat as someone who is coming out of school and starting to work as a product manager right now. Because the tools of tomorrow, the approaches of tomorrow are going to be very, very fundamentally different than the approaches of yesterday. And this is almost like an overnight change. Almost like an overnight change, right? I mean, the speed with which things are changing. So that's my, that's my advice to my team. That's my advice to myself as well. Like, hey, we all need to embrace this new technology, this new way of doing things. And if you ask me, what is this new way of doing things? I have hypotheses because of how I believe AI is evolving. But, you all will have ideas and approaches that might be the next big thing, the next best thing. So we are all in this together in terms of learning and driving where we need to go tomorrow. Right. So it's a great leveler. You guys are coming up at a time where things are changing dramatically. So embrace this technology in your daily life, whether it's for personal work or professional work, and really, make an effort to make it second nature. And that'll be the biggest thing that we can do right now. Right. So AI is a big part of our focus, both in terms of, our product is AI enabled. So that's a big part of it. But also, foundationally, fundamentally leveraging AI in making good decisions, leveraging AI in driving faster outcomes, leveraging AI in doing everything we do day to day, right? That's really a sort of a big part of my focus, our focus in continuing to drive that. Yeah.
So at the most optimistic in AI is the thing that will drive ultimate efficiency and productivity and all of the good things. But is there a downside to what is happening with AI currently?
Yeah, I was reading an article a few days ago, maybe a week or two ago, right? The godfather of AI, he kind of came out and he was at a conference and he was like, this sounds like a doomsday scenario almost, but he was like, the best case scenario for humanity is that AI develops motherly instincts, right? If AI does not develop motherly instincts, what AI will be sort of the stuff of our nightmares because it will become smarter than us and it will, it can drive us to what we see in movies and things like that, right? So that's one side. Again, I don't know the answer. Like this is somebody who has been branded as the godfather of AI. That's his perspective. Yeah. So who knows what'll happen? Who knows how it'll evolve? But the reality is AI is a powerful technology. I think AI is something, we cannot choose to ignore. It would not be smart of us to not utilize it in what we are doing because the level of effective impact and outcome that it can drive is at a magnitude that, we cannot fathom, and the impact that will have on our lives and businesses, we should absolutely use it, embrace it, etc.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the downsides, like any sort of major change throughout the history of evolution, right? I mean, look at, the Industrial Revolution. There was a major change. In some ways you can say downside, yeah, life changed. Industrial Revolution led to more pollution, and maybe it led to we used to have large joint families. Everybody was friendly with each other. Your world was limited, so you always knew each other and had good relationships. But that changed, right? It evolved, right? So is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. It's certainly evolution that just sort of human beings are wired to continue evolving, and this to me is another stage in evolution for us. It'll have its impact. There'll be some good, some bad, but overall, I don't think any of us should choose to ignore it because we think it'll have some negative impact. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie. When I was growing up, there was a movie called War Games, and I think it was Matthew Broderick who's the star of War Games. Anyway, the concept is, in a bunker underneath a hill in Colorado or a mountain in Colorado, and then the U.S. military is running simulations.
Right, yeah.
And then the computer takes over.
Yeah.
And then it's going to start firing nuclear weapons all over the place. So I guess that's my doomsday scenario, is that AI takes over and who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows, right? I mean, we can either choose to utilize its value right now and then, and I'm not smart enough to stop that from happening. Let's put it that way, right? So then I have to rely on other people who are smart enough, and hopefully they'll make the right decisions.
Well, I don't know. You seem like you're smart enough.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you're working on currently with Logiwa that you're really optimistic about or excited about? What are some of the changes you think you can help make?
Yeah. So Logiwa is a, cloud native warehouse management platform. Actually we call it a fulfillment management platform, right? Our big focus is certainly AI driven optimization. In the warehouse world, in the fulfillment world, the Holy Grail has always been efficiency, right? How do we drive more efficiency on the floor so we can drive better outcomes, drive better productivity, etc. Right? So, and these are common metrics. If you think about it, a large part of what someone does on a warehouse floor is kind of walk the floor to pick product, right? And then if you do not have optimal pathways to do that, then you're wasting effort, right? And still to this day, on an average, 60% of their effort is wasted on the floor. 60% of employee effort. When I say wasted, they're walking more than they should. Let's put it that way. So that leads to loss of productivity, loss of efficiency, etc. Right? So leveraging smarter tool sets to drive more efficiency is still a very, very common problem that we have to continue solving. And Logiwa, with its sort of cloud native architecture, AI driven optimization, it does those things really well. So we are not the old school warehouse management system. We are a modern, open architecture warehouse management system. So in today's agent world, we believe that there is not a single technology that solves the problem. That's why we believe in partnering with, companies like eHub and others to make sure that when our customers are looking for answers, they have a whole suite of things to kind of take up and work with to get to those answers. And having partners is one part of the equation, but we also should have the technology backbone, which allows the partner technologies to work well together to serve our customers. So it used to be that in the warehouse management world, customization was the name of the game, right? So if you go back and look at some of the traditional warehouse management platforms, the ones that have been really successful, they do that on the backs of a very large consulting engagement, right? Gotcha. So the technology is there, the products are good, but then it also requires a very, big, expansive consulting engagement to do it right, to do it the way the customer wants it. And that's not the future state, right? The future state is for solutions like ours, where we still are able to configure it to our customers' unique business processes and business needs. But we do it on the backs of a technology backbone that is architected in an open manner, right? We use it in plug and play manner. We work with other partners. We have open APIs. Those are the ways we drive it. And then we are a very modern, platform which leverages, tools like AI or AI-driven solutions to drive maximum productivity, maximum optimization for our customers. So those are some of the ways we, pride ourselves in the technology we have and how we bring ourselves to market.
Would you consider that the differentiator between other similar platforms? It's a very competitive space.
Yes, it'll continue to be a competitive space. But for us, absolutely, it's a differentiator because, you can change the product that you have built. You can start modifying it, but the foundation of the product, if it's not built the right way, it's very difficult to get the flexibility that comes from it, right? So for us, the competitive driver or the competitive differentiation driver is the fact that we have built on an open architecture. So it was built from the ground up, with cloud native technologies, with open API structure, with the idea that modern platforms and customers that are today's customers that want to use these platforms, they want flexibility without the binding force of, massive consulting engagements. They really want, configuration for themselves because every customer's operation is unique. And you still need that ability to address problems in different ways for different customers. So you cannot sacrifice that flexibility, but at the same time, it needs to have the ability to allow for that flexibility without requiring true customization, where you have to spend days, months, weeks, to kind of solve for that.
Yeah. So as you're now getting your feet wet in the role, you've been there just
8-ish months,
9 months or so. And you look around the company, what are the things that you think Logiwa does really well?
Yeah. So like I said, that's one of our biggest differentiators. Technology is one of our biggest differentiators. We were built by, a founder who kind of understood sort of these needs of our customers and the need for a platform that can be flexible and manageable. So those are our big differentiators. One of the things this is not us talking about ourselves. Our customers always tell us is that, what we find really fascinating about Logiwa, what we really like about Logiwa is, certainly your technology platform, but also the engagement, the support that you provide, right? You give us the attention, you give us the time, you give us the, you solve our problems, and we always find, value in engaging with you on an ongoing basis, right? So that's the other aspect of Logiwa that is really sort of fascinating, or that our customers like, and that our customers tell us that, I feel very proud of in terms of what we are doing.
Leading with your technology, but with a focus on the customer.
That's right.
Taking care of the customer, meeting the customer needs. Okay. Are there things as you have walked into the company, are there things that you've looked at your past experience and say, I think I could utilize this here to help do even better what we're doing today?
Yeah, it's always true, right? You always kind of bring different perspectives based on your experiences. Absolutely, right? So, how do we think of building product? That's something, that's what I bring to the table. That's what I have done. So that's a lens that, I'm kind of adding to what Logiwa had already done, and then kind of building on top of that, right? How do we partner with our customers and, other technology partners and vendors to build better products? How do we understand the market? How do we understand, where the market is headed and what our customers are truly wanting, and do early experimentation around that, and then drive the building of the product? That's an area that, we're working on. Like I said earlier, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is kind of building teams and growing teams. So we have a very young, hungry team. They have done a phenomenal job. They are extremely hard workers. And so I'm kind of bringing a lens to them to kind of take them to the next level. So those are some things that, on a personal front that I feel like I bring to the table here, and, we're kind of enjoying the journey here a little bit. Yeah.
Are there challenges that you can talk about within the walls that you have to try to overcome? For example, there's in lots of companies, there can be some, miscommunication maybe between the sales operation and the development team. Sales wants this. They're saying that the market wants this. Development is saying, well, that sounds great, but, I'm not sure that the market needs that, and we don't have the resources to do that. So if you want us to put it on there's this whole conflict that you have to go through.
Yeah, and that's a common part of building product and software companies. That you guys are a software company, so I'm sure you are aware of that as well, right? Like those, what that to me is healthy, actually, right? You gotta have this push and pull of different perspectives, different lenses, to hopefully have a debate and discussion to arrive at the right answer. That'll be problematic if we only have the push and pull, but no debate and discussion to arrive at the right answer, right? That's when it becomes problematic. But having the push and pull, I think it's a sign of a healthy company, healthy culture, versus not. Certainly, I think the challenging part for us is, like I said earlier, we have a rapidly changing market and industry dynamic, with a lot of unknowns. right? And this is not unique to Logiwa. This is everybody who is in this space, right? Everybody who is remotely connected to this space, right? So that's a, challenging and a fascinating dynamic. We are all trying to kind of look at the signs and kind of figure out what it means and where is the market headed and what it means for the customer that we are trying to target and so on and so forth. So that is a big part of the challenge. And then in this dynamic, in this, building product is always an ambiguous sort of environment. You have to make decisions with, less than perfect data. But in this market, it's magnified, it's multiplied, many times over. So that adds dynamic. So in that market, you're always constrained for resources. You're always trying to make the best decisions with a limited set of resources. So you can't do everything that you want to do. Now the market is like that, and the market is changing at a very rapid pace. The speed in which we have to make decisions becomes even, more critical and even more challenging, right? So how do we develop a system? How do we develop an organization? How do we develop a process? And then the muscle organizationally to allow for taking quick decisions with just enough analysis, just enough, experimentation, but at the same time, understanding and accepting that many a times it's a calculated risk and there's a chance of failure. And then there is a chance of failure. So how do we not let that failure become, something that pulls us back versus how we can bounce back from it and make us go faster and further ahead and so on and so forth.
It's really interesting that you bring that up because I think we're probably aligned and we would like to make, and I'm talking about our companies, we want to make decisions based on the best data available. And even in that scenario, when you want to make a decision based on the data, and we always want to help our customers make a data-based decision to drive efficiency, sometimes the data isn't great.
Yeah. Sometimes the data isn't even there, right? Like, you have to make decisions, with what you got. Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, what is your process in that scenario?
I'm not going to share that. No, no, I don't have a magic bullet. Like, I don't think there are any.
I don't know if there are. It's just
there aren't any amazing answers to that, right? But I think this is where you have. I think more than trying to say that we have the right answer, you have to be willing to say that we have to go with our experience, with our gut a little bit, and then whatever use data, as much data as is available or as little as is available. Definitely use it. Look for the signals. Cover, if there are 20 parameters or 20 questions that you want answers to, if the data gives you 5 answers, it's giving you some signal. Utilize them. Don't ignore those signals. But then the other 15, you have to prioritize and make a decision, right? So you balance the risk, you balance the effort, and you kind of, say, okay, this risk and effort combination with these signals makes the most sense to us right now. There is always a chance, this is the risk associated with taking the decision as well. So to me, that's one of the things, right? I mean, in product, what I tell my team are also like, it's way more important what you don't do and talk about what you don't do than talk about what you are going to do when you make these decisions, right? Most of them we talked about how there could be misalignment, there could be different forces when we are making decisions, like sales might want to go a different way, marketing might want to go a different way, customer success might want to go a different way, product thinks something else altogether. But more often than not, that's not the issue. More often than not, a decision gets made and then we don't focus enough time on this decision means that we are going to do this, but we're not going to do these 10 things. And that's where the misalignment comes in play. So in my world, especially, that's one piece of advice that I give my team, and I always focus on is it's almost more important to talk about what we are not going to do than what we're going to do. Because the assumptions that people make in that vacuum is where companies fall apart, where, products fall apart, where failures happen. So that's, in a nutshell is sort of my philosophy of building products.
Oh, I think that's great. Thinking about it's as important to think about what you're going to do as it is this is now what we're not going to do.
That's right. To me, it's even more important to talk about what we're not going to do. Certainly we have to talk about what we're going to do.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, I think that's a great background on what you're doing at Logiwa, and we certainly love the company. But I do have a few more questions before I let you go. Mm-hmm. And these are more personal questions. So this is the 3 random questions segment. Yeah. So sometimes when I have a guest, I'm so happy to have you sitting here with me. Sometimes when I have a guest who's from the U.S. and I ask them, who's your favorite U.S. historical figure that, So I'm going to ask you that question, not U.S. though. Who is your favorite historical or most influential historical figure in your life?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. So I don't think I have one. I've always been fascinated with history. So I love visiting places that have historical significance. Mm-hmm. I have the travel book. My family has the travel. We love traveling. My 2 girls, 12 and 9 now. Thankfully they enjoy traveling as well. So we go to these places, and almost always we have, we pick places that have some historical significance. We also do, the typical beach trips and things like that as well, right?
Yes.
So just now we came back from a trip to Turkey, Istanbul. Then we went to Athens, and Athens, Greece, obviously, the hotbed or the bed of modern European civilization, modern Western civilization, right? So, so just visiting where the modern democracy was born in Athens, the seat of democracy, the modern structure of, Senate and, democratic decision-making process, and taking my kids, we're taking civics classes right now. That was just a fascinating experience for us all. Istanbul, many people don't realize one of the most powerful empires at that time was the Ottoman Empire, and whose seat was in and around Turkey, and they were a massive empire. Unfortunately, so the spoils of war are taken by the winner. So Ottoman Empire didn't last long. Somebody else won, so they're not that prominent in history. But it's fascinating about the culture. So coming back to your question of the, historical figures, I'm always fascinated by, people in, the leaders in those eras, making decisions, right? How, if I was in, Napoleon Bonaparte's shoes, and how did he decide to go conquer the next thing? And then, you have these armies of people who are just marching for not days, weeks, years. Right? For their entire lifetime. They're going from one land to another, just conquering and doing. So the mindset that is required to go through that, what is driving that? How did they run their entire, country in that kind of mode,
right,
etc. So that's super fascinating to me. And then again, you look back at a history of human civilization, all of these big events that have happened, what would I give to be a fly on the wall, World War I, World War II.
I think about that all the time.
How did that decision get made? What were the pros and cons? How did that discussion happen? Right? Things like that. It's just fascinating to me. So not one historical figure. I think I go back to India. India was obviously under British rule, and there were people who fought. Gandhi is one of the most prominent figures from that part, but there were others. What drives them to, give up everything to fight for this kind of movement, this kind of, outcome, right? It's a huge sacrifice.
Right.
So how do they make the decision? So to me, that's the fascinating part of it. It's not an individual per se, but these moments, these events, that have shaped who we are, what we are doing today, how we are talking here, right? That's the fascinating part.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping that at some point you get to go you get to go review all of that.
Maybe a time machine, and
yeah,
I know. And then I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll survive that time anymore.
Well, yeah, I think about that a lot. I consider myself a fan of history as well, and I can't imagine going through and having to experience what some of those people had to experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would step out here today and say, what?
No, what is this?
What
Yeah,
is going
that's right. Yeah.
What is going on? Okay. What is the thing you miss most about India?
The food, the people. Yeah. I don't miss the traffic and the pollution, but I miss. I'm a foodie. I love food. I'm just food is my weakness. So that's definitely one of the things that I miss the most about India. And all the, unfortunately for me, my constitution doesn't allow me to go have food in the places I used to have food when I was growing up. All these little corners and all these dirty stops and all this street side stuff. So that's definitely something that I miss the most. Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know. I haven't been to India, but I consider I have a few Indian food restaurants around that I really like. I think it's authentic. I don't know. Is there good, authentic Indian food in the States?
I'm like 20 something years into my journey in the US. So I think, I'm probably not the authority in authentic. I like Indian food here as well. So, but yeah, when I talk to other people, they always say it's not authentic. It's different. And there's different varieties. What happens here, I think at any place for that matter is, in India, you get unique food in different regions. So that's a very authentic, for the lack of a better word, taste to it, flavor to it, or whatnot. Here, as you can imagine, most restaurants are combining different cuisines or different types of food. So it kind of merges a little bit. So it's fusion for the lack of a better word.
Sure.
Still pretty good. There's good places in the valley. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it true that a cricket match can last for several days?
It is true, yeah. There is a version of a cricket match that can last several days. That's right. Yeah.
What would constitute a cricket match that lasts several days?
So just like baseball, right? Baseball has 9 innings, and then it can go longer or whatever, right? So a cricket match is the one that lasts 5 days. It's called a test match. So it's a test of your endurance, your will, your skill, all of that stuff. And it is 2 innings per team. So the first, one team comes in, one team is pitching, one team is batting. They have an inning. Then it switches over. The next team does that. And then whatever runs you make in one inning, so both teams come out and make, let's say one team makes 500 runs, the other team makes 300 runs. Now the one team has a 200 run lead, which they take into the second innings. Right. And then at the end of the 2 innings is decided, whoever is winning by runs or whatever is sort of the winning team. But it can last. That game, that specific version of the game is 5 days. There's also a version of the game which is 3 hours. So there's different versions of the game.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The test match, the 5-day version is supposed to be a purest version of the game. It's it's a test of your skill. Like it's a real test of your skill. Yeah.
And when you say it lasts 5 days, do they play for a certain period of time, one day, and then come back the next?
That's right. Yeah, it's not continuing for 5 days. No, they have breaks for drinks and lunch, and they even have breaks. They have a tea break. It's a very quintessential English thing. That's right.
What?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the adoption of the tea break in India from Great Britain?
It's just part of the game. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. One last random question. If you could be anything else and be successful, what would that be?
I think it has to be a travel and food blogger.
Really?
So we love traveling, I love traveling. My wife loves traveling. Our kids, family loves traveling. So travel is such a, big part of our life. And we're always fascinated. Like, maybe a few years ago, maybe even there was this article about this guy was paid, an obscene amount of money to just go stay on an island off the coast of Australia and just blog about it. Right? Wouldn't that be a fascinating job? That'll be amazing. So to me, it's travel and food blogger is probably what I would have wanted to do. Yeah.
Interesting. Are you a good writer?
I would like to think so. I don't know. I would like to think so. I don't think I'm a very good writer, honestly. No. I make do. I do okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And are you a good cook?
I'm an okay cook. So that's one of the things that I think when I have more time, I want to spend more time, invest more time in kind of doing more. I'm an okay cook right now. I don't do enough in the kitchen right now. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell me how you keep yourself educated, how you keep yourself on top of the news. What are the things that you like to do in your spare time to keep to make sure you're mentally stimulated?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the hardest things to do in today's, in many ways, very easy. In many ways, it's really hard because there's so much information out there. So then, it becomes really important for you to spend some time trying to sort of curate a list for yourself, right? Like these are the areas that I'm going to focus on. These are the places where I'm going to focus on, and kind of, what newsletters and which authors and which bloggers. So get a list like that, and then occasionally experiment as well. Go beyond that, every month, go find a couple more to add to the list to see if you want to replace something, etc. Because it's so much happening. So simple things, right? I have a few newsletters, few authors that, I say authors, bloggers and podcasts, etc. that I focus on. That's, to keep up to speed with what's happening in the industry, keep up to speed with what's happening in my sort of work lane, and keep up to speed with what's happening in the world in general. I used to read a lot, but not, lately I'm not able to find so much time to kind of read books, but it's more smaller articles, podcasts, things of that nature. So just kind of having a routine, spending 15 minutes, 30 minutes every day to kind of keep yourself up to speed with the events that you are interested in.
Yeah.
And just finding that time, like just even 15 to 30 minutes is plenty, right? Just to kind of keep up to speed with some of the changes that are happening, some of the new things that are happening in the world, and learn from that.
I think you're right. There's so many resources. It can be overwhelming.
It definitely can be overwhelming,
with everything that's happening. Is there a business philosophy or a principle or book that you lean on as you go through your daily work?
Yeah, for me, it's always been, going back to the basics, right? So we talked a little bit about Michael Vick. The other sports sort of indoctrination that I had when I came to the US was into basketball, NBA actually. So one of my first clients was in San Antonio. And this was the heydays of the San Antonio Spurs, if you're familiar with them, right? So, Duncan, Robinson, it was that era. And,
that was a good era.
It was a very good era for the Spurs. It was a pretty good era for Jazz actually as well, right? The mailman and Stockton.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a pretty good.
Absolutely.
We had some good rivalry games, I remember. So I've always been a big Spurs fan. I've always been a big Popovich fan. And what I liked about the philosophy, so there's a few things, funny enough, I don't, put too much stock in what sports coaches say, but, like some things that Popovich has said that resonates with me really well. One of the principles in San Antonio Spurs is around pounding the rock, right? So pounding the rock, you come, when you get a raw rock from a mine, there's nothing to it, but you have to pound at it to make it worth something. So that's one of the philosophies for Spurs, right? You gotta keep doing it every day, show up, do it. The incremental improvement that you don't see, it shows up over time, right? So that's my philosophy in life as well. Take the next step. Take the next step. You don't worry about the outcomes. Don't worry about, where, but you got to take the next step. Without taking the next step, the 100th step doesn't happen. Right. So that's a big part of my philosophy, it's in everything I do in work, in life, in everything. And that's sort of what I encourage my team to do. The other part of it is from a people perspective. Very often we forget that, there's different kind of philosophies, separate work from personal life, and then there's loyalty. People are loyal or not loyal. It's business, not business.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for me, what you cannot separate is we are human beings. We all have our, we all have our personal sort of, things that we have to take care of. When we come to work, we cannot take off everything that's going on at home, right? If you have problems at home, if we have problems with our children, marital problems, health problems, just because we show up at work, those don't go away, right? We are human beings, right? So let's not ignore that fact. We are, for me, it's very important that I treat people as humans, as adults. We are all dealing with adults. We are not here to we're not working with, kids in a professional environment. So I always believe in giving them room to be adults and make their own decisions to the extent makes sense. And then on the other flip side is make sure that there is accountability for decisions, right? We all make mistakes. I've made enough mistakes in my life. I'm not here without making mistakes. So why push them, in a different direction when they are making mistakes? Try and help them, but treat them as human beings. Treat them as people. Treat them as people who have families, and you will bring that baggage, for the lack of a better word, to work. I do as well, and everybody does, especially in a world where we are working remotely, we're working on screens all the time. It's very difficult to dissociate those two things. So those are some of my core philosophies on how I deal with work and life.
That's interesting. I think that sometimes we forget the human element. I think it's changing. I mean, I think it's becoming more prevalent. But
I hope so, yeah.
But sometimes the workplace can feel pretty stale, and you don't take the human element into consideration. I think that's great advice. You mentioned Greg Popovich. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Culture Code, but he is prominent in that book, and they go through his
I'll check it out.
philosophy of dealing with and building a team and creating a culture, and it's really interesting, and it's aligned with the concept.
I'm a big fan of that team. I love the way they built it. I love the fact that they had a superstar who was willing to put in the hard work, right? Those kinds of I thought jazz was very similar, actually. Very, very similar, the way Sloan built the team, and then, the people that they had, they show up for work and not fancy. That's sort of, I have that workman-like ethic that I buy. I believe in, you gotta put in the hard work. That's one of the things that I talk to my kids all the time, right? And it's very, very important. Life, you can keep rolling in life, but people who get ahead are not always the people with talent. It's really people who put in the hard work.
Well, it's one of those things that you can control. Yeah. You can control your attitude. You can control your preparation. You can control your work ethic.
That's right.
And if you can manage those things, you give yourself a pretty good chance.
Give yourself a pretty good chance. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Who was your favorite player on that Spurs team?
So I've always been the underdog guy. So I go for players like Bowen and of course the star players are the star players, right? Yeah. But I like that, I'm a short guy. I'm on a good day, I'm 5'5", right? That's what I believe. So, I've tried my hand at basketball even, but then, and we talk about what we control. What I can control is hustle on it.
Yeah,
I can, nobody will out hustle me. I know that, absolutely. But I am on that, so I am, so I relate it to being that pesky defender who will get in everybody's face. But of course, that team, I loved all of that team though.
Yeah. That was great. All right. Well, before I let you go, where is Logiwa headed? What are some of the things we can expect out of this great company?
Yeah. So we've talked about two things that we believe are big differentiators for us, right? An open technology, for the lack of a better word, and then AI-driven outcomes, right? So there are going to be some exciting updates on the AI-driven outcomes, right? We are continuing to build on that. We certainly are the leaders in the market in our space in that specific area as well. So you'll see more and more on that front. We'll continue to build out partnerships and build out technology elements with those partnerships that we build out, right? To give our customers more choices. And then we have some very exciting updates, as we step back and think about not sort of the next iteration of our warehouse management, fulfillment management technology, but also the next iteration of where this world is headed with AI. We are working on some exciting changes, exciting updates on that front as well, where we are thinking of looking at problems in a more foundational, holistic way and being able to optimize for the next best decision on the warehouse floor versus just optimizing for, the overall batch size or the pick path and so on and so forth. So that's really something I'm really, really excited about as we think about the future.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great company. There's great people. We love those guys, and we look forward to our partnership and moving forward together. So
same here. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, we think our partnership is really valuable to us, certainly. And we think what you guys are doing is fantastic here at eHub as well. And we look forward to continuing the work we're doing together.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
For having me. Yeah.
Come back and see us, I'm sure, in the next 6 months, and you'll have another great update, and we're looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, I would love that.
Amit Kumar.
There you go.
Not the singer.
Not the singer. If I start singing, nobody's going to,
people will run away. There you go. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.